Hey everyone. So, yeah, this episode is definitely where the real tragedy sets in, not only for Kuma, but for everyone else involved. Like, yes, the crux of this episode is obviously Kuma choosing to give up his own life, his own autonomy, willing to become a pacifista for Bonnie's sake, all without her knowing until it was too late. But Kuma himself was perfectly fine with that and willing to accept his fate as long as it would save Bonnie's life. And the best part about this moment and that whole conversation with Saturn is seeing Vegapunk's various reactions immediately upon being introduced to Kizaru in this flashback. It's instantly established they're at least acquaintances. And when talking to Saturn, you can see the guttural disdain that they basically have for each other. Like it's in these little conversations that truly go a long way to establishing Vegapunk's relationships with these people, which in itself kind of exposes the bigger tragedy of this episode, which is, despite Kuma's circumstances, you can see genuine bonds being formed among this little group of weirdos, and how once upon a time they were all friends, but in the present they're being forced to kill each other. And I alluded to this before, but the one who really gets the most out of this part with the flashback, in my opinion, is Borsellino. Like, I think I've said this previously, but he's never really been my favorite admiral, simply because while he's got a cool power and design, he always felt like the one I knew the least about, which I guess is good for building intrigue for him later. But even on a surface level, I felt more invested in Akainu and Aokiji when I first met them compared to Borsellino, who he just kind of felt he was there. Now, with this flashback, it does a lot to remedy that, because here we get to see the depth of his relationship with Vegapunk, with Sentomaru, and even with Kuma. Like, he generally did see these people as friends once upon a time. It's just that circumstances and obligations have basically torn them apart in the present. It's very much a tragedy of a friendship that wasn't meant to last in a way. And getting back to Kuma, though, yeah, his situation is kind of the most depressing, though, still, because even though he wanted so desperately to tell Bonnie the truth about what was happening, he basically got stonewalled at every turn. And the thing is, if Kuma was just given the chance to properly explain to Bonnie what was going on, I think it would have gone a long way towards at least preventing Bonnie from trying to kill Vegapunk. But all Kuma could do was give her many different forms of goodbye, and hope that even more so just by leaving that memory bubble behind, she would come to understand the reasons he did what he did. And thankfully in the present, that very much is the case. The only thing is, the realization of it may have come too little too late. Like, if if Bonnie had just was able to learn and understand about this sooner, I think there would be a chance of actually saving Vegapunk in the present. But because of that, yeah, I don't think, yeah, there's much chance now. The other thing with this, though, is that, yeah, there's no going back for Kuma. This chapter definitely alludes to the idea that for Kuma, his fate was sealed the moment the procedure began. All he could do was continue to communicate with Bonnie in the only way he knew how, through his letters, and just through constantly telling her in many different ways that he basically loves her through those letters. It's kind of interesting to see this, but at the end of the day, the he's Kuma is like destined to be who he is now, a unfortunate shell of his former self, and without anyone fully realizing it. Although I do imagine Dragon, more than anyone else, probably has an idea of what happened. Like, when you see his reaction to Kuma becoming a warlord, you kind of see the wheel spinning in his head, saying, "Yeah, I think I know what's going on here." But he chose not to. But he chose. I know what's going on here, although. And it's kind of, aside from that, though, it's also kind of interesting to see the perspective of how the world kind of reacted to Kuma when he first became a warlord. And more specifically, one fun little interaction was definitely when Ace learned it, because we get to learn the name of Kuma's predecessor, who Ace defeated, Hanafuda. And I decided to look it up, if there was like a picture or a concept art of this character, and luckily on the wiki there was. Like, and when I saw this concept art on the wiki, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of begging and pleading to kind of see like some kind of anime only fight like between Ace and Hanafuda now and how that played out, because but at the same time I don't know if it's going to happen this late in the game, so yeah, unfortunately I don't think it ever will, but at least we got a mention of him, I guess. And yeah, with us getting close to the end of this flashback, and especially with the end of the yes episode teasing Luffy and Kuma arriving on the East Blue, a lot of Kuma's story from here is pretty much about seeing how much he laid the groundwork for a future he wasn't going to be a part of. Like, without giving too much away, let's just say his support for the Straw Hats didn't just end at separating them at the Sabaody Archipelago, and it all begins here where he first meets Luffy. And again, it's one of those interesting things for me where it's so interesting how Oda handled this, because he basically took a character who had so very little we knew about him, and yet managed to twist an entire backstory out of it. Like, that backstory was so much depth, so much character, and like it weirdly all fits. Like, it's so difficult to craft a story for a character out of practically very little to nothing, and yet Oda, for one reason or another, he managed to do it so fucking effortlessly. And again, going back to what Oda had said long ass time ago, how with One Piece he has the beginning and the end figured out. This is one of those things where I wonder if it's part of the end, or if it's part of that middle that he didn't plan out, kind of thing. Like, again, this is just one of those things that makes me so curious. This is a backstory that really just makes me want to be a fly on the wall for when Oda is like crafting his story, because there's so much to make me say how much of it this is Oda fucking winging, how much of it is planned. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Blue Sky. Now it's Crunchyroll, be sure to hit the bell, the subscribe button, and just shit everyone, guys. Dark Knight Renee signing off. Later, everyone.